So welcome back. We're looking forward, B'ez Hashem, to continue on page 246, when we're holding V'chein lamed b'nitzochin, to stand with, literally means victory, a spirit of triumph, an acute triumph, if you will, and I'll explain myself in a moment. What type of triumph? He says, Neged kol minei me'avedas Hashem, everything which prevents a Yid of serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now, on the overall, we're holding on Tes Vav. I just mentioned page 246. If you're following, we're holding on this 15th epistle of the Igeres HaKodesh, which is relatively a lengthier Igeres, a lengthier epistle. And we mentioned also, simple reason, or what makes it so long over here, so elaborate. The Alter Rebbe, for the first time, even though it's such a fundamental in the Alter Rebbe's doctrine in general and his teaching on the overall of the 10 Sefirot, the 10 Midas, which every human being, for that matter, acquires. For every human being possesses, and particularly the Yid, starting from his nefesh lekis, he has 10 Sefirot: the Chochma, Bina, Das, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, Netzach, Yisod, Malchus. Alter Rebbe introduced this. As you recall, we mentioned this a few times in the third chapter of the very first segment, Likutei Amorim. We're holding this. Igeres HaKodesh is the fourth segment in the Sefirot Tanya, which is comprised from 5. This is the Teirah Shebiksav of Teirah Achsidus. We had a presentation on this segment, the backdrop of this segment, in Igeres HaKodesh Yud, which is the 10th, just 5 back. Instead of repeating it, again, it definitely unique and distinct in comparison to all the other segments of Tanya. And we had kind of a presentation there, worth it to look. It's a click away, wherever you're watching and whatever class you want to take a look at, wherever you're watching these classes. But Tanya Online is the original website. Tanya Online, one word, is the original website, between TanyaOnline1word.com. And they're the advantage. All the previous classes are set up, and it's really a click away, second away, literally. Any class you want to take a look at, there's an advantage the way it's set up. Also, the text on a separate scroll bar, but namely, all the previous classes, all the way down to the very beginning of the first segment, all on the left, lined up on the left side. The higher part, from in the top, is where we're presently learning. So this, I believe, is even the 8th class. It's unusual, of course, but this is a lengthier chapter. The 8th class on Igeres HaKodesh, where the Alter Rebbe introduces this idea of the 10 Sefirot in the first segment already, in the first few chapters. In the third chapter of Likutei Amorim, the Alter Rebbe introduces this, tells us that this is what the neshama is comprised of. It's not only a gadol, a great beaming light associated with the light of Kadosh Baruch Hu himself. Nefesh lekis is a chelik of the kamimal, part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So of course it's an infinite light. The Alter Rebbe says, no, there's they begin, the third chapter says this neshama has 10 Sefirot. This is part of the neshama itself. It's interesting, there's a Maimon in Teirah, the Alter Rebbe says, it's not mamish the Yetzer neshama, but in the Tanya, this is what the neshama is. There's an organized system in the neshama, which is part and parcel of the neshama. It has the 3 cognitive faculties, as the 7 emotional faculties, which again, a person could intellectualize in the reality of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. As the Alter Rebbe himself goes on. The third chapter, it's worth it again. The third chapter in Likutei Amorim, towards the very beginning. He said, because there's based on these 3 cognitive faculties, Chochma, Bina, and Das. Das he explains towards the end of Gimel, because it's a unique, it's not just a direct continuation of the Chochma. Bina is already a complete hands-on on anything one wants to intellectualize on, meaning to say it has the ability to expand and to understand with great in breadth and length of any concept. That's Bina. Das is in a different idea, internalizing the matter. Again, not to go through the whole idea, but there he explains how the nefesh lekis, what's this, he takes a kind of extra of the nefesh lekis. The nefesh lekis, because it's a godly neshama, if it has intellect, of course it's intellectualizing on matters of godliness, on the Ein Sof Baruch, on the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And if it has the 7 emotions, it's emoting with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But there he begins with Ava V'Yira, or he notes Ava V'Yira as Chesed and Gvura, understandably, Chesed and Gvura, which would be Ava V'Yira. And he said these are the chief spheres, and all the other spheres, all the other emotions are anofim, are branches of the two. And he doesn't elaborate on the other spheres. The first time the Alter Rebbe, and again he mentions, of course, Chesed, Bina, Gvura, Tiferes, Malchus many times in throughout the Likutei Amarim, but with such an organized presentation of all the spheres, the way they reflect even between man and his fellow friend. He puts it in the analogy, in the mashal, he speaks about it as the Rab and Talmid, master and disciple, master and pupil, says father and son, but in context of a father being the teacher, the son being the student. And he shows you how each one of them plays a role into the transmission of the study of master to his pupil, to his student. And then he says, of course, this is all a mashal, namely, and what the Alter Rebbe is all about, of course, to bring it, to connect us with the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to establish, to enhance the connection, or to show us, to demonstrate to us how we have the tools, and this is who we are. This is who we are. It's innate, it's inherent. We have these 10 midas within ourselves, and how we're supposed to execute or express these midas in our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So he goes through each one of them. He starts from, last week we learned Chesed, Gvura, what happened to the Chochmah Bina Das. He's going to explain it as well. Of course, he's not going to, but he said, namely, of course, it's the expression, the expression of the Yid's relationship to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which namely commences with the Midas, Ava, Yira, Tiferes, as he explained last week, in our class last week. So today, he's holding by Nitzachim. I believe he went on to B'chol B'chinas Nafshei. I believe we did V'chein Lefoyer Es Hashem B'teirosei, B'chol Mini Pe'ero L'dovka B'shvacha, B'chol Mini Nafshei. You know what, B'chol B'chinas Nafshei, I think, I'm pretty sure we're holding Lama B'nitzachim, but let me just repeat this. Tiferes over here, I'm pretty sure we had this. Again, it's a click away to see. It's 2.5 lines over here. We're going to read it quickly. To glorify Hashem and His Torah with all different expressions of glory, to cleave to Hashem's praises with all his soul, which is the meditation of his seichel, his intellect, and his thought, also to express the glorification of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the praises of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, b'dibure, with his words, which means not to keep it in thought, but also to express it in words, to express the pe'er, the glorifying Hashem, glorifying His Torah, adhering to Hashem's praises with all your soul, meaning to say to have that profound appreciation on it. It shouldn't be, of course, external. To glorify something, you have to have that understanding why you're glorifying it. So you have these bein and sichel in meditation, pondering with his intellect and his thoughts, but also glorifying it, not allowing the glory, not keeping the glory, the glorification of Hashem's name in your thoughts, even though you have a comprehensive understanding in this which you're glorifying, which is Hashem and His Torah and the praises of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but more so you're uttering it, you're expressing itself also b'dibure, which is, of course, you think about it generically, when you think about someone glorifying, so usually glorification comes with words of glorification, and so too, it's meant to be in the relationship with the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the way it's expressed to Tiferes, not only to keep it in his mind. And why would someone keep it in his mind? Because he's thinking, it's about glorifying Hashem, and Hashem knows what's in my mind. Hashem appreciates this which I appreciate about Him and His Torah and His praises. Why do I need to bring it in words? But yes, we bring it in words, besides the fact that words, Hashem gave us the ability to talk. We have to utilize speech in the service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's why we bench out loud. Hashem knows what I have in my heart, that I'm here to sit down. I'm sitting down to bless Him, to thank Him for that meal. No, we utter it in words. For that matter, Hashem also used words in His creation. Hashem spoke creation into being, whatever that's supposed to mean, of course, on high. It's distinct, it's different, but Basara Mamor is clear face value of the pasuk of the Mishnah. Basara Mamor is Nivrei Olam. You see it in Bereshit. Vayayim Elikim. Hashem spoke creation to being. He demands from us to utilize our speech, which again, gifted by the Almighty, which for there you see the superiority of man in many other ways, but of course there you see the superiority of man in many other created being, and it's meant as such to be utilized, which means in speech, as such is meant to be utilized in the service of God. For that matter, he says he learns Teda, which apparently Teda is an intellectual pursuit. So he says, no, the way to Yid, I'm supposed to learn Teda, the Gemara says in Eidavin, brings the pasuk, you have to utter the words of Teda. Oh, Amar Abaye, Amar Rava, but I know what Abaye says, Rava says in my mind, Sichlei Machshavtei. No, but you have to utter it, you have to verbalize, you have to express it in words. That's the optimal way of learning Teda. And so too, glorifying Hashem, it's not enough in your own seichel, in your machshav, in your own thought, in your own appreciation, but also to bring it out in words, of course, to yourself, namely to others, family, society, community, in different opportunities which we have as we interact, especially interactions associated with our Avodas Hashem, to talk about different, talk and express oneself with different expressions, again, precisely, not only b'sichla mashafta, but in words, demonstrating the glory of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Hashem's Torah, and so on. Then he comes to Nitzachein, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shakel niyah b'dvari. Comes to Nitzachin. What does it mean, Nitzachin? Neged kol meineim ba'avodas Hashem. Victory. Why the notion of victory? Why the expression of victory? To be victorious, to triumph. Do what Hashem wants. So, firstly, of course, he's going in order. Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes. What comes after Tiferes comes Netzach. Right? So, Netzach, Hashem, in our avodas Hashem. And this is one of the character traits of a human being. But again, a Yid associated with Nefesh Elikis, of course, associated with his Avodas Hashem. It's crucial and important. The Yid expresses Nitzachin. Because just like when there's a battle between two empires, two monarchs, there's not only, okay, it's a casual idea that one won if it's an election, or won a war, especially an unjustified war, as an example, and they come in and they win the war. It's not only, okay, let's just put up the flag or the sign or the currency, stretch the currency to that territory which was always a problem, which was the cause, as an example, to the unjustified war, and you just take over and you're there, and things just casually, nonchalantly change on the ground. No. There's something very important, that there is a sign of victory over the other. And their simple idea is because you don't want the trouble to come back. If it's just casual, okay, tomorrow this could be something else. We're just doing it also nonchalantly. And then, Rahman al-Itzlan, it could be terrible and results and consequences and catastrophic. But when you come and you establish the victory over the right over the wrong, the good over the evil, as an example, and you establish it with an Nitzachin that crushes the dark, crushes the evil forces, and it take a longer time for them to lift their head up. And so too, and again, this is across the board. It's not just like, oh, we won. Well, of course, if it comes, it borders a way that just is a demonstration of a certain mal-character. Sometimes there are two people, you do what you have to do, and the other party would feel, understood, or they would understand, they would introspect that they did something wrong. You don't have to come and say, aha, you lost. That's it has a mal flavor to it, or beyond. There's no point in it. But when you're talking about things which are vital, that the negative should not lift their head up again, it's important not only you do what you have to do, and you go on with the correct, individually correct lifestyle yourself, or collectively, the government, which was challenged with this unjustified challenge, as an example, and it's able to overcome the adversary, it's important that there is a statement of nitzachim. There's a victory. There's a expression of victory in order that the negative should have a hard time, at least, to ever pick up their head again, their ugly head. Especially things which are inherently dark. It's not only me and you and who's going to win. No, things which are inherently dark, inherently unjust, inherently evil, and so on. So too when it comes to Avodah Zarah, we're talking about Hashem as a mandate. The King of all kings has a mandate. He wants this world to be transformed into a godly world. Actually, a place which he wants to call home, his abode, his domicile, his place where he would feel comfortable. And we look around a world and we realize we have a real job, we have a real important mandate, a vital mandate. Because there's many areas and many people or many areas or many influencers which in the end of the day not only don't allow the divine reality to be part of them or to dwell among them or allow even the divine reality to get by them. They stand with a strong opposition against God, godliness, the divine spirit, meaning to say that this certainly not allowing Hashem to take this, to establish this world as a home for himself. So we know we have an important mandate. Hashem decided, Melech Malcham Lachem, the King of all kings, said, this is going to be my territory. Well, of course, we don't have to negate, this is Hashem's territory. On the onset, it's Hashem's territory. We can't do whatever we want. Those who in history, Perek thought, for example, that Leah Eidiv and Isisani, as the Gemara explains, the famous Psukim in Tanakh, when he said not only he's boss, he's king, he considered himself as an idol. And of course, Hashem showed him who is the true king. Of course, Hashem created the world. He's in control of every detail, every nuance that exists. Hashem is in full control. And many times over the years, Hashem showed it overtly. Parei Melech Mitzrayim was a clear example that he was crushed time and again, the 10 plagues, and eventually the final plague, and he himself, Gershom in Mitzrayim, as the Pasuk says, he chased Yidden out of Mitzrayim, despite he had this ironclad decision that Am Yisrael is not going anywhere. So Hashem is in charge of everything at all times, and we should always be careful, understand that Hashem is a king and he's a Moshel, he's a Melech, but nonetheless, and therefore we have to be careful even on the surface, even before entering into, so to say, deep discussion with others or even with ourselves, how much the control is and what can I do? Do I have freedom of choice? Can I do what I want? No, on the overall, we can't do what we want. It's Hashem's world, and Hashem is full control. And a person should have a minimal fear or even reverence. You're talking about you're in the face of the one and only. But in the end of the day, HaKadosh Baruch Hu established this very world in a way. He created this very world, and he established this very world that on the surface, his dominance, his reign should not be overtly present. And he sends the Yid, for that matter, in the end of the day, it's the mandate of every human being, but particularly the Yid, which is Eila Goy Misaticha. Yid is meant to be a light upon the nations in order to execute this mandate, to open the lights. It's like, go ahead, this is a place which is beautifully furnished, a multi-million-dollar edifice, but you can't use it, and the lights are closed, and many people want to say, no, there's nothing really in there, and it's really not usable, and it's not a place which is one would call pleasant, because you come in, it's dark and it's opaque, and you trip and you fall over, and there's no guidance, and you can't know what's going on in there. Okay, that kind of makes sense, but there's a few switches. Open this light and open another light, and all of a sudden you see it's a beautiful home, a beautiful edifice. Hashem gave us the light of Torah, the light of mitzvah, neir mitzvah Torah, and he mandates the Yid open up a light, put on tefillin, put up a mezuzah, eat kosher, chas v'sholom, don't do anything which closes the light, which would be generally the aveda, the sin, the transgression, the violation would brings in, to be exact, but generally it does bring in a level of impurity. Klipa sitra achras, again, generically known in the doctrine of Kabbalah and Chassidus. Opacity, darkness, which again dims matters instead of keeping them bright, which is the idea of Elisis. And then Hashem says, again, the negative commands. And Hashem says, do another positive command. Learn more Torah. Learn a lot of Torah. Give tzedakah. Give a lot of tzedakah. So you're opening a light, another light, and another light, and eventually this is what Moshiach is all about, that we will see that all this investment, individually and collectively, for that matter, for millennia, one millennia after the other, in the end of the day, the world itself will become a dwelling place for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, an overt dwelling place for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So Hashem created this world in a way that we should not see it on its own. We not only have to wait it out till the lights go on, but we are part of the process. We make it happen with every mitzvah we do, in every mitzvah in all areas, in action and speech and thought, and every small difference makes the difference. Famous Rambam. A human being, and particularly the Yid, has to look at the world as an exact. The scale is right and perfectly balanced. And when you have a perfectly balanced scale, the smallest and the lightest, even a piece of paper, could tip the scale. And that's the way every human being, particularly the Yid, has to see the entire world on a constant basis. That my next move, my action, my next speech, my next thought is going to make the difference in my own life, society, and ultimately the entire world, the world in its entirety. So Hashem gave the Yid the mandate to do so. So when we think about it, and we realize we are part of the process, Hashem sent us to the world, to this world, for that very reason. So we are kind of soldiers in Hashem's army. That's why Yidden, for that matter, are called Tzivos Hashem. It's not just like a poetic name to give Am Yisrael. We are soldiers in Hashem's army. Hashem took the neshama, which is a difficult thing for the neshama, to come down to this place called Elam Hazeh, as we know it. Even a person lives a life bumpless, which doesn't exist, of course, by nobody. Of course, different level, but even things are not terribly difficult. But yeah, we know that from the neshama's perspective, it makes so much sense. Why would I want to be here? Why would a human being want to be in this world? Even when things are okay, for the neshama, it's a very particular neshama, which is part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and it continues to appreciate on high where it comes from, to appreciate the glory of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It constantly derives delight and pleasure and true love and fear, it basking in Hashem's presence with true delight and pleasure. The neshama to come down into a world which its message is anything other than that. So why would Hashem do that? Known as the Yiridus HaNeshama Beguf, the descent of the pure and divine neshama into a body. The answer, because it has a mandate. Hashem chose the neshama. Like anybody, any soldier, would rather be at home with their family, but then they realize, for the sake of the country, for the sake of their banner, if you will, they're ready to leave all that and go on the front line and put their life in danger. Why would they want to do it? Not one or two or 100 or hundreds of thousands. And many of them have a nice, beautiful family at home. But they do it. They're excited, of course, to come home. They're excited when a war ends. Excited when they're given up. But ultimately, they have a motivation to leave, to go, to fight for the national pride. Because this is my country, and it's worth fighting for. And it's worth even dying for it. They're going to an army. They're putting their life in danger. This is an army, and the army knows it has to win. It can't lose, because it's representing a higher ordeal, a higher calling. So too, Yidden are called Tzivos Hashem, because we're soldiers. We're of Melech Malchei Amlach HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the King of all kings, and we have a mandate, and therefore things are meant to be pursued not only nonchalantly, but nitzachin. It should be with a victory against anything which prevents a Yid in his service to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So sometimes you have it in a grander scale. What Rebbe brings over here, David HaMelech, classically, David HaMelech Avashalom was a brilliant warrior. But we think about David HaMelech, he captured another country, city, and another town, and another nation, and so on, and he was just this great warrior. No, that's not who David HaMelech was. David Melech would rather sit and learn Torah an entire day, an entire night, and that's what he did. In his time when he wasn't in battle, that's what David Melech did every single day, and to the extent the Gemara says in Brachas, Kitilas, that his greatest pleasure and his greatest delight was to sit in his domain and sit and learn Torah every night. David Melech, middle of the night, he had this alarm clock, if you will. It wasn't a clock, but the Gemara says the way he set it up woke him up, and he sat and learned Torah every single night, from midnight all the way to the morning. And when he could have continued learning, that's what he did, because he was David HaMelech. He was a Yid, which was an Eved Hashem, Avdi David, a Eved, a servant, which is completely subservient and subordinate to their master. But David HaMelech, that same David HaMelech, which was so close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, felt that any nation that wants to hinder the honor of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and wants to compromise the glory of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and certainly when he noticed that any nation wants to compromise the glory of Hashem's nation, which is really part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as Yidden are called Bavavas Einei Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The most sensitive part of the eye, which is again the most sensitive part of the body, as we know that, I'm careful how sensitive the area of the eye is, as an example, and that's where the Yid is connected to and beyond. So whenever anybody, any nation, any force, any king wanted to compromise that, David HaMelech was there to eradicate the nation, to crush the nation, chas v'shalom, that they should not desecrate the great and the glory of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And he was victorious, and his nitzachon wasn't just a personal nitzachon. David HaMelech had nothing personal about him. He was an Eved Hashem. Everything about him was about his master, which was Hashem himself. So when David HaMelech won a war, it was a real nitzachon, it was a victory for Hashem. He felt it was Hashem's victory, and it was Hashem's victory. And when Am Yisrael was able to save Am Yisrael from this nation, from this entity, he appreciated the nitzach, and he celebrated the victory because it was God's victory. It was God's people's, dear people's victory. And so too, individually, the nitzach and Avodas Hashem. We have different challenges. Every individual has, from within and from without. From within, need not to elaborate. Yeah, that's the good old body, our nefesh bahamis, our animal soul, our Yetzer Hara, which constantly tantalizes us. Don't do that. Don't take it easy. Don't worry about it. We have to not only fight him, but we have to triumph over him and point out to him, as the Alter Rebbe has a famous example in Perek Chavtes in Tanya, L'Kuti Amorim, worth to see, even though there he says b'machshavte. We have to be careful. We don't have to walk around screaming at the Yetzer Hara. You see one word, the Alter Rebbe, which was the Alter Rebbe, right? He was the Alter Rebbe. He was one word b'machshavte. It has to be an inner calling, not something just external. But the lashon of there, how the Yid is to relate to the Yetzer Hara. He says these lashonos. I'm going to say it in Lashon HaKodesh. I hope maybe you can figure it out over here. Lirgais al nefesh bahamis, which is Yetzer Hara b'kol rash b'regis, with a tumultuous voice and wrath. The machshavte, of course, the machshava, right? First and as we just mentioned, leimer leite tel rashatara v'rasha v'mishuketz v'mesul menuval. We lightly translate: you're bad, you're evil, you're abhorrent, you're loathed, you're disgusting. To put things into place. And yes, to crush the Yetzer Hara. Don't bother me. Genug shame. Because a Yid B'etzim wants to learn Torah. He wants to come to Minyan. He wants to be silent by Minyan. He wants to daven like I mentioned. He wants to learn a lot of Torah. And he wants to give a lot of stuff. The Yetzer saying, no, don't give so much. You know that your great-grandchild has going to have a bar mitzvah and you won't have to give it. But there's a calling now. Person is victorious. He triumphs over his Yetzer Hara. And he says, no, this is the calling now. I'm okay. Things will work out. As Lashon Alter Rebbe famously in Perek Lamed, also L'Kutei Amorim, it's a click away to do beyond, to establish this level of nitzach, and not only a casual, nonchalantly Avodas Hashem. He has it in Chavhei, and then he has it in Lamed again. It's a click away, and it's worth to see on Divrei Torah, Kisher La'il, L'Tfila, particularly when it comes to tefillah for that matter. You can look in these two chapters. I'll click away again. 25 in the first segment, Likutei Amorim. 30 in the first segment, Likutei Amorim. When it comes to davening per se, it's worthwhile to see 28 in Likutei Amorim. There we definitely can appreciate the idea of victory, meaning to say, to plow through, meaning not allow even for a millisecond any argument of the Nefesh Bahamis, not even to recognize it, not to identify it. Kind of, we talk about acute nitzach, and getting back to that word which we used in the beginning, that victory, that I'm going forward. Don't talk to me, I'm davening. Don't even tell me anything. I'm not even going to respond to you to tell you that I'm davening now. And therefore, give me a break, because that itself what the Yetzer wants the Yid to do, to stop, to pause, and to talk to him, because he wants your attention. Give me a break, Shad, don't bother me. No, you shouldn't even do that. Nitzachim, you plow through and you focus only on your davening. Chav Ches, you have it also very similar in Perek Chav Hey, in Igeres HaKodesh. Of course, we didn't learn it yet. We're holding the 15th of Igeres HaKodesh. Similar idea. In Chav Ches, if you take note, the Rebbe has in one of his Maimarim, our Rebbe has one of his Maimarim on about the message of Chav Ches and Likutei Amorim, even over Chav Hey in Igeres HaKodesh. The real idea of Nitzachim over the Nefesh Bahamis. Don't even dignify it, not even for a millisecond. It's vital in every single area. Dafka not. You want me to do that? No. You want me to be careful, my thoughts, my eyes, and so on? No, I am not going to. We're going to crush you. And so too, in the Torah, a person has a certain sin. I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to check my this correspondence, that correspondence. No, you're in the middle of learning. You have to be minatseach. Don't give the Yetzer even a chance. You crush it on the onset. In English, being nip it in the bud, right? But it's a certain idea. The nitzachim, the victory. Neged kol meinei ma'avedas Hashem, anything that prevents the service to God, lidov kabayim, from to cleave and adhere to HaKadosh Baruch. Uveneged kol meinei miliyas kved Hashem miliyas kol haaretz, to prevent the honor of HaKadosh Baruch to be filled the entire land. Microcosmically, referring to the Yid's himself, you have a land, you have your lot in this world, and this is your land and your lot. You have to make sure that the place where you live, in your heart, in your mind, in your soul, and in your domain, in your territory, what you come across on a daily basis should be clear, a place, a domain that demonstrates the honor of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The honor of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is present and not something else, anything else than the honor of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, particularly when it comes to Chilul Hashem, desecrating the honor of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which, for that matter, the Lashon of the Rambam, from a certain perspective and point of view, every Aveira, every sin is a Chilul Hashem, defying and defiling and desecrating, a desecration of the reality of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But there is certain Aveiras which are pronounced more that Chilul Hashem idea, the desecration of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Name it, to make sure in your own lot that there's only Kavod Hashem, only the honor of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is manifest. But beyond that, there's the idea Kol Haaretz. A Yid is never satisfied with his own lot. Of course, one has to focus primarily, predominantly on their own lot. What do they say? When people try to fix the world and they forget about fixing themselves, usually it doesn't work, and the other way around, it does. You fix yourself, there's perspective, you're able to extend a positive and beautiful message to your family and society, and eventually you can fix the world as well. In history, we found that individuals had an impact on the entire world, literally. We can do it, but of course we ought to begin with ourselves. It doesn't mean that we have to look for perfection before I talk to another human being about the oneness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but it has to, one has to stay focused simultaneously, let's say. But understanding it's about the Kavod Hashem, your own aretz, and from there, by extension, to other areas in Hashem's world. And then a Yid has to have that feeling that I want Hashem's glory to be manifest in the entire world, because if there's one spot in this world, in Hashem's world, which doesn't demonstrate the oneness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the honor of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the glory of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and sometimes Chas v'Shalom to the contrary, it hurts a person. Just like, think about the king, which is meant to take over that territory, justifiably take over that territory, because there was always issues in that territory, coming from that territory. So he'll take over 90% or 95%. There's a little area which the troublemakers, the opponents are still there. It's not satisfactory for the king. A king wants everything. He doesn't satisfy himself with mediocrity. And rightfully so. Because if you're going to leave a little spot, they might spread. Their influence might spread. They might come and pick up their ugly head again. You want everything, anything, any negative energy should be completely uprooted, and it should be completely manifest with a good, with a positive, yes, the holy, the divine. And so too, we know this is Hashem's world. There should be one place in Hashem's world which should not demonstrate the covenant of Hashem. It's Hashem's world. It's not our world. Hashem made it in a way that we have we are lucky. We have the merit. We appreciate the merit that we're part of the process to bring about the Kavod Shamayim. And we stand in the center, front and center, in this execution of this implementing the Kavod Hashem. So as part of that, I should know, a Yid should know, there's one place which is not allowing the Kavod Shamayim should enter, should be part of, should demonstrate. And sometimes the opposite, it bothers a Yid, even one Yid. It does, and it's meant to, because we are part of the Tzivos Hashem. Though, to say it in reality, Hashem gives a person their lot, their place, which they have to work on, and another person will work on another place. But conceptually, every Yid is supposed to be bothered when there's even one domain in Hashem's world which is not demonstrating the Kavod Shamayim. There are, together with every Yid doing their Avodah, in every Yid, there's the Neshama Klal. It's a general Neshama, literally translated, loosely translated. Similar to the way Yiddishkeit was set up, Moshe Rabbeinu was not an individual. Moshe Rabbeinu was a Neshama Klalis, meaning to say, translated as a general Neshama, which was the one who looked after, or the one who was the transmitter of Hashem's message to the people, and he had that vast responsibility more than any other Yid in his times. He had the responsibility of all of Am Yisrael and the message to the entire world. For that matter, that's where the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach came from. Hashem told it to Moshe Rabbeinu, so it began before, but formally set up the 7 mitzvahs, as we know, the 7 Noahide laws, was given to Moshe Rabbeinu. The Rambam writes it in his Mishnah Torah. Because Moshe Rabbeinu was that neshama which had the direct mandate to make sure that the Kavod Shamayim, the honor of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, was Malei Kol Ha'aretz. And of course, David HaMelech. We saw it, David HaMelech, Moshe Rabbeinu namely led Am Yisrael from Mitzrayim to Eretz Yisrael. Mitzrayim, he did it. He's definitely brought the Kavod Shamayim to Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim was not a little shtetl. It wasn't just a big city. Mitzrayim was Moshel Bekipa. The ruler of the civilized world was Perek. And Moshe Rabbeinu had the Kavod Shamayim coming right into Parei's turf. The Mitzrayim Kini Hashem. The Mitzrayim himself should know that I am God. And they figured it out very quickly. Because Moshe Rabbeinu is a neshama klolis that he wants, not only he desires, but he has more of that mandate that the Kavod Shamayim should be Malei Kol Ha'aretz. So every leader in their generation, and then you have a neshama, again, namely the neshama, the klolis, which means, just like for example, the time Moshe Rabbeinu was other leaders of every tribe, different leaders of the tribes, but there was one Moshe Rabbeinu, and Moshe Rabbeinu will always remain one. A lot of good Yidden, a lot of leaders, and a lot of tzaddikim. There's a one tzaddik in every generation, which is tantamount to Moshe Rabbeinu, as it says in Zayar. In every generation, there's a Moshe Rabbeinu who comes down. He's a neshama klolis, which he has the foresight, and he has the insight, and he has the understanding and appreciation what it means, a world which is under the tutelage of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, none less, nothing less. And the Kavod Shamayim comes to every single place. Not one domain in this world should be left without his presentation to introduce the Kavod Shamayim through Yidden, through learning Torah, and society living and executing their mandate, even as non-Jews. of course, with the 7 Noahide laws, given by Kodesh Baruch Hu himself. Every place in this world, because if there's one place in this world, it should bother every Yid, but the Neshama Klolis, which he comes down as a Neshama Klolis, again, as it says, we're not going to go into it now, his Neshama functions in a different mode. It's the generator. It's not just like a particular outlet which has energy. It's the generator itself. There's neshama, the makeup, and therefore he has that vast understanding of the mandate which Hashem gave every single yid to bring about the kavod shamayim to every single place in this world. And he's connected to every single yid, like the generator is connected to every single outlet in the entire city, to the entire municipality. It's the one that gives the energy. And that's what a neshama klolis is all about. Moshe Rabbeinu was there to bring about, like the Alter Rebbe has also worthwhile to click away, Lukuti Amorim, the first segment in Perek Membeis, to Lemad Das, to bring the Das, not only the Chochmah Bina, the information, but the transformative approach to God, godliness, to every single yid. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu does. And he allows them, and he shows them, and he teaches them. Moshe is a Melamed Torah L'Amei Yisrael. Of course, as the one Moshe Kibbutz Torah Misinai by HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives the Torah through Moshe Rabbeinu becomes the teacher, to teach not only the information of Torah, but the Das, which is that transformative ability, the information which is transformational, rather, to look at the world and to understand, yes, this is a Lakus, this is God, and therefore the approach is different. The Yid lives a true, healthy, godly, divine life, together with his 2 feet on the ground, knowing that he has to transform this very world and make it a Dhamma soul for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's what Moshe is all about. Thus he's connected to every Yid, gives the koach to every Yid to execute their particular mandate in their particular place, with their particular chelkom ba'olam, their lot in this world. But Moshe Rabbeinu is the grand Neshama Klolis. So Moshe Rabbeinu has that urge of the kavod shamayim even more than every average Yid. Understandably so. We saw it by David HaMelech. He was David. He was the one who fought the wars of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he wanted the kavod shamayim should never be compromised. And so too you have Tzaddik Olam. You see that the Tzaddik, the Moshe Rabbeinu, which is concerned that the entire world should be connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And in the areas where there is a Chilul Hashem, namely when it comes to the compromise on shleimus, the shleimus of Torah, chas v'shalom Torah, there shouldn't be any fragmentation or any defect, those who want to compromise and shake the Torah around to their liking, to their comfort, especially in areas which are so fundamental. Who is a Yid, who's not a Yid? This is just things which are, the difference between one and the other are the most stark difference when everything, it's not a detail, but particularly when it comes to an Neshama Klolis, you realize even a detail in Torah is vital, but naming things which are overtly, ain't no detail, they are things which are the difference of day and night. And you can't sleep till that is corrected. The shleimus of Torah, the shleimus of Am Yisrael, not chas v'shalom to bend the Torah to my liking. Torah is whole, Torah is wholesome. And that tzaddik cannot sleep till he sees shleimus HaTorah. And of course, shleimus ha'aretz, the completion of our holy land. If there's any compromise in that, the tzaddik cannot rest and the tzaddik cannot sleep. And he'll make it clear. We need the wholesomeness of Torah, Eretz Yisrael, and of course at every single Yid, shleimus and Yidin. That's a Neshama Klolis, which he wants to make sure there's never a compromise in the kavod hashamayim, in the kol haaretz, the entire globe, the entire land. That's what Nitzachon is all about. And that's why it's so vital. Because if we come to it just casually, we would never be able to come to the place where we are today, in all areas. Of these areas of Shleimus HaTorah, Eretz, and Yisrael. It's only because of the Nitzachon. As we found it again by David HaMelech, as the Alter Rebbe brings over here, but let's go on where we're holding to to give me again, neged komineh, to be stand strong against any, with this prevents the honor of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to refill the entire land. Like the wars of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the David HaMelech fought, David HaMelech Olam HaShalom fought. So, for that matter, interestingly, I wonder if we should stop over here. We just learned about Netzach today. That could be the big Nitzachim, the big Nitzchainis. But just to point out, we notice in Hilchos Malachim, the Alter Rebbe describes Melech HaMashiach. Interestingly, he writes also, Yilchem Milchemes Hashem v'yinatzeach. He also writes, he'll fight the wars of Hashem and he'll be victorious. He will win. He will triumph. So first of all, you see over here, this is what Moshiach is all about. And of course, if it was like David HaMelech like that, of course Moshiach is supposed to bring the entire world to its recognition of the reality of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yakiru v'yedu kol yeshvei sevel ki lecha tichra kol berach, that every knee would prostrate and bow down to you, Hashem. That inner recognition of the reality of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Moshiach is supposed to bring that idea into full fruition. So of course, it's Milchemes Hashem. V'yinatzeach, and he'll be triumph, and he'll be victorious. So this idea, this lashon is it speaks about Melech HaMashiach. But if you think about it, as people sometimes ask the question, oh, Moshiach, where do we see that he's fighting in a battle, in a war, on the battlefield? So first of all, he's fighting on the war on the battlefield, metaphorically for sure. He's with every single soldier, especially today when we have Eretz Yisrael. It's set up in such a way that there's soldiers fighting on the battlefield. Yeah, there's someone fighting with them on the battlefield. But beyond that, the real Mechemes Hashem, you think about David HaMelech, when we look at David HaMelech, it's not, oh, he was a great warrior, so he carried the weapons and he fought. Yes, he did. But it wasn't that he was this great warrior like any other king, which was able to fight a battle, brilliantly fight a battle. Lahavdil, Napoleon, as an example, Alexander. When you looked at David HaMelech, he was the tzaddik of his generation. He had one mandate, that the kavod shamayim should chas v'shalom not be compromised. If it needed, he needed to put on the gear in order to actually go out in the field and lead an army. So he did. But that wasn't his Mechemes Hashem. His Mechemes was Mechemes Hashem. He needed the kavod shamayim should not be compromised, or more so, chas v'shalom, fragmented. That was who David HaMelech was. And that's what his victory was all about. Not just conquering a certain area, I'm a great warrior. So when you have it set up on Moshiach that he doesn't have to put on the gear, what's the connection to Mechemes Hashem, to putting on a gear? The uniform, that is. What's the connection of putting on the uniform? The army uniform, or standing as a soldier, or as a general, or as a top general. That's something which is consequent to the main Milchemes Hashem of Melech HaMashiach. So the idea of looking at the Rambam says, oh, he has to fight in an actual war. Oh, no, of course not. Not at all, for that matter. And so to David, that's the way it was set up then, that David actually went to war. But David was Mechemes Hashem. David was the Tzaddik Ader. The Gemara Brachas Lino Elevorech. He was the only one who was called Eved Hashem so many times. Abdi David, Eibishter calls him. And because of that, he went to the extent that in his time, that's the way it was set up. If it's set up differently with another setup, that there's those who are actually fighting. So besides the fact, he's fighting with every single one of them, personally, beyond our imagination. Ask them. See them. See what they're saying. Besides the fact he has people with them on every step of the game, demonstrating their concern, their love, and their energy which they infuse them as they go out to battle. together, many of them together with him. But ultimately, it's set up in such a way that he doesn't have to put on that war gear, that uniform, because it's something external to the overall, what Milchem Mechemes Hashem is all about. So we think about Moshiach, Yilchem Mechemes Hashem, it's Yilchem Mechemes, it's not about the way we portray it, but it's similar to David HaMelech Alav Shalom. It's the way it's set up presently. It's a different idea, but the message is the same. And yes, we can even equate it to David HaMelech, because we think about who David HaMelech really was. He was that tzaddik which bothered him, and the kavod shamayim, that there is a compromise in the kavod shamayim, there's a compromise in shleimus ha'aretz, shleimus ha'am, and shleimus ha'teira. That's who David HaMelech was. The fact that it was set up that he put on the arm uniform, and he had to be the leader to go out to war, that's how it was set up then. But that doesn't mean that it has to be set up like that at all times. And when it comes to the Rambam saying Yilchem Mechemes Hashem V'Yinatzeach, he doesn't mean that he has to be the one standing in the field physically, even though he's there. Physically, he doesn't have to be there. It's the point that he wins the Milchemes Hashem. He fights the wars of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It bothers him when one Yid doesn't have a pair of tefillin. It bothers him that one Yid is not keeping Shabbos, because there's one Nekuda, there's one point in the entire world which the kavod shamayim is not totally manifest, overtly manifest. It bothers him. And it bothers him deeply, and he will not rest for a moment till that place is a filter, or a place which has the ability, and has the keli, and has the right setup, that the kavod shamayim could come straight through and establish itself permanently, and does not exclude any place in the world and any idea. Again, the shleimus of Torah, shleimus of Am Yisrael, shleimus of Eretz Yisrael. As the Rambam writes there, V'Yinatzeach, this Moshiach will be successful. Not only successful, he will triumph. He will be victorious. Shall we see his victory, B'Kariv, and beyond that, have a wonderful night.